Listen, because this story doesn't start with a battle. It starts with a chase. A long one, across oceans, across continents, across silence. An oil tanker, hunted, not for days, not for weeks, for months, tracked from the Caribbean all the way to the Indian Ocean. And when US forces finally boarded it, what they found inside didn't just expose a smuggling operation, it exposed a system, a global machine, quietly fueling war.
In its pursuit of ghost tankers, the United States captured yet another tanker carrying 700,000 barrels of crude to China. According to the Department of War, the Aquila II was operating in defiance of President Trump's established quarantine of sanctioned vessels in the Caribbean.
Let's slow this down, because the ship's name matters. Aquila II, not famous, not flashy, not headline material, until now. The Pentagon says this vessel was tracked across half the planet before Navy Special Operations Forces stepped aboard without resistance. No gunfire, no explosions, just a quiet boarding. Calm, too calm. And that calm is what made investigators nervous. Because ships that carry nothing illegal usually don't spend a year hiding. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth didn't soften his words. Not even slightly. He told commanders one thing: none of those ships are getting away. That's not policy language. That's a warning shot, without firing a shot. Now here's where it gets interesting. This wasn't the first tanker seized. It was the 8th since the US launched its global interdiction campaign targeting illicit oil networks tied to sanctioned states. 8 out of hundreds. But this one ran the farthest. And when something runs that far, it's usually because it's carrying something worth protecting or hiding. Let's talk about identity, because the Aquila II had 3, and none of them matched. Russian oil, Panamanian flag, Hong Kong owner, 3 jurisdictions, 3 legal systems, 3 layers of distance. That's not coincidence, that's architecture, carefully built, deliberately layered, like a financial disguise floating on water. Think about it. If a ship flies Panama's flag, it looks neutral, routine, invisible in a sea of commercial traffic. If it's owned by a Hong Kong company, tracing the real owner becomes a legal maze. And if the cargo never appears on official documents, then on paper, it never existed. Now here's the trick smugglers use. It's called running dark. Sounds dramatic, but it's actually very simple. Ships have transponders. They broadcast location signals. That's how global tracking works. Turn it off, and you vanish. The Aquila II didn't go dark occasionally. It lived in the dark. Tracking records show it spent most of the last year invisible, surfacing briefly, just long enough to meet other ships at sea. Transfer cargo, disappear again, like a ghost with a schedule. But ghosts don't coordinate, networks do. And that's where Venezuela enters the picture, because intelligence shows the Aquila II was one of 16 tankers that suddenly fled Venezuelan waters at the exact same time. Not gradually, not randomly, simultaneously. 16 captains. Same decision, same hour. You don't get timing like that unless someone gave an order. One command, multiple ships, instant execution. That's not smuggling, that's command structure. Investigators say those vessels were contracted by major oil brokers operating in sanctioned markets. Their strategy was simple and bold. Scatter. 16 ships, 16 directions, flood surveillance systems, overwhelm tracking resources. Basically, if you release enough rabbits, the hunter can't chase them all. Except this time, the hunter could. US surveillance aircraft locked on. Satellites tracked movement patterns. Naval intelligence mapped trajectories. One by one, they followed them. Not rushed, not panicked, patient, methodical, relentless. And suddenly, the scale of the problem came into focus. A senior Coast Guard official testified that globally, there may be up to 800 sanctioned tankers operating right now. 800. Let that number sit for a second, because it changes everything. America has seized 8. That's 1%, meaning the network is still almost entirely intact. Financial analysts estimate that 1 out of every 5 oil tankers worldwide is tied to sanctions evasion. 20% of the global tanker fleet operating in the shadows. That's not a loophole, that's an industry. And here's why it matters. In mid-2024, shadow tankers were transporting roughly 4.1 million barrels of crude per day for sanctioned exporters. That's about 70% of Russia's seaborne oil shipments. 70%. Which means this isn't a side channel, this is the channel. Without it, the revenue collapses. Without revenue, the war machine slows. Without fuel, even the loudest military eventually goes quiet. And in late 2025, something changed. Russia's oil export revenue dropped sharply, down to about $11 billion for the month, lowest level since the war began. Sanctions pressure, seizures, lower prices, refinery strikes, all hitting at once, like a storm system, converging. To understand why this boarding matters, you have to understand naval history. Traditionally, navies enforce zones. Blockades stay inside declared regions. You patrol an area. You don't chase targets halfway across the globe. That's the old rule. The new rule? There is no zone. The Pentagon made that clear in a blunt statement. No other nation has the capability to enforce its will through any domain. That line wasn't written for reporters. It was written for governments. Russia read it, China read it, Iran read it, Venezuela definitely read it, because the message is simple. There is no ocean far enough, no route hidden enough, no paperwork clever enough to guarantee safety anymore. Imagine you're a tanker captain moving sanctioned oil tonight. You used to worry about patrol zones. Now, you worry about the whole planet. And then there's the Hong Kong connection. Ownership records show the Aquila 2 belongs to a company registered there. That matters, because Hong Kong's corporate structure allows layered ownership chains, often shielding ultimate beneficiaries. In plain English, you can hide who really owns something very well. Analysts say these shell companies have become a primary route for sanctioned oil to reach Asian buyers while maintaining official deniability. Publicly, nothing illegal. Privately, entire cargoes moving through invisible pipelines of paperwork. And much of that oil ends up in independent refineries, facilities that operate outside formal state energy systems. Quiet buyers, quiet shipments, quiet profits. But quiet doesn't mean small, it means deliberate. And what the Aquila 2 revealed is this: the shadow fleet isn't random. It's coordinated, structured, financed, protected. It's not a smuggling ring. It's a parallel global oil market, built to survive sanctions. Pause for a second, because this is the part most headlines miss. Seizing a ship isn't just a seizure, it's intelligence. Every intercepted vessel is like opening a filing cabinet that was never meant to be opened. Routes, contacts, payment channels, insurance fronts, shell owners, transfer points. One ship can expose hundreds more, which raises the real question. If one captured tanker revealed this much, what would happen if 10 were taken at once, or 50, or 100? Because somewhere out there right now, hundreds of captains are sailing dark routes, engines humming, radios silent, paperwork clean, hoping they're not next. So, what was this tanker really feeding? Not just a refinery, not just a buyer, not even just a country. It was feeding a system so carefully designed, it almost looks invisible. Let's go to eastern China for a moment. Shandong province. If you've never heard of it, don't worry. Most people haven't. It doesn't show up in headlines much. No flashy skyscrapers, no dramatic press conferences, but inside that province sit dozens of small oil refineries. They're nicknamed teapots. Sounds harmless, right? Like something sitting on your grandma's stove. They're not. These are independent refineries, small compared to state giants, flexible, quiet, and most importantly, hungry for cheap oil. Here's how the system works. These refineries buy sanctioned Russian crude at deep discounts. How? Not directly, never directly. They purchase through Hong Kong shell companies, which hire shadow fleet tankers, flying flags from countries that have nothing to do with the cargo. It's a legal hall of mirrors. Every reflection shows a different story. None show the truth. The goal? Simple. Let China benefit from discounted Russian oil without officially violating sanctions. Publicly, compliance. Privately, commerce. Diplomacy upstairs, business downstairs. And right in the middle of that pipeline sat the ship America chased across the planet. Aquila 2, Russian oil, Hong Kong paperwork, Panamanian flag, destination, Chinese refineries, every link engineered to disappear under scrutiny, until it didn't. Because once US forces boarded that tanker, the illusion cracked. The Pentagon even released video. And honestly, that footage says more than any press conference ever could. You see uniformed personnel loading into a helicopter. Calm, focused, professional. The helicopter lifts off. Below it, a naval vessel matching the profile of the USS Miguel Keith. Beside the tanker, a destroyer. Not a patrol boat, not a Coast Guard cutter, a destroyer. Let that sink in. The United States deployed a warship worth roughly $2 billion to stop a rusty oil tanker. That's not routine enforcement. That's theater, strategic theater, because this wasn't just about stopping one ship, it was about sending a message to every other ship. And trust me, every Shadow Fleet captain saw that video. Some probably replayed it twice, maybe 3 times, because when a Navy deploys that level of force for a single tanker, you start asking yourself a question: is my next voyage worth it? And that's where strategy becomes psychology. Sanctions enforcement isn't only about seizures, it's about fear, uncertainty, doubt. You don't need to catch all 800 ships if you convince captains that any of them could be next. Now let's zoom out, because the real battlefield here isn't the ocean, it's Russia's budget. Analysts say if current enforcement pressure continues, Russian oil and gas revenue in 2026 could fall by another 25%. 25 on top of existing losses. That's not a dip, that's bleeding. Picture a government trying to fight a long land war while its main source of money is shrinking month after month. Weapons cost money, fuel costs money, soldiers cost money. Replacing destroyed equipment costs a lot of money. Wars don't just run on ideology, they run on invoices. And for years, Russia had a workaround: the Shadow Fleet. That was the pressure valve, the escape hatch, the financial oxygen tank. Roughly 70% of Russia's seaborne crude exports have been moving through these shadow vessels. 70%, which means take out the fleet, and you don't just inconvenience the system, you choke it. And this is why that one tanker mattered. Not because of its cargo, because of its data. Every seized vessel is an intelligence goldmine. Contacts, routing logs, payment trails, insurance fronts, communication frequencies. Each ship is a map of the hidden economy. So when the Aquila 2 was boarded, it didn't just lose its cargo, it lost its secrets. And secrets are worth more than oil. Now here's the bigger picture most people miss. This isn't just a US operation, it's a signal to the world, a demonstration, a proof of capability. Because historically, navies enforce zones. You protect your region, your waters, your trade routes. But this pursuit started in the Caribbean, ended in the Indian Ocean. That's not regional enforcement, that's planetary reach. And when a military proves it can track you across half the globe, geography stops protecting you, distance stops protecting you, paperwork stops protecting you. That changes the rules, not just for Russia, for Iran, for Venezuela, for any country relying on shadow shipping. Because suddenly, there's nowhere left to hide. Somewhere tonight, a tanker captain is staring at a radar screen, listening to engine hum, watching empty horizon, and wondering, am I still invisible? That's the real power of this operation, not the seizure, the uncertainty it creates, because uncertainty spreads faster than enforcement. One thing is now absolutely clear. The United States just proved it can hunt a sanctioned vessel across the entire planet and catch it. That means no ocean is automatically safe anymore. Not the Pacific, not the Atlantic, not the Arctic, not even the middle of nowhere. And now the world waits. Will the remaining hundreds of Shadow Fleet ships keep sailing, or will they start disappearing voluntarily? Will captains risk it, or quietly retire? Because somewhere inside naval command rooms, analysts are watching screens, tracking signals, following routes, waiting. And if this operation is any indication, they're patient, very patient. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think this global crackdown will actually cripple Russia's war funding? Or will the Shadow Fleet find new ways to survive? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Support this work by liking the video and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on stories the headlines miss.